All right, it looks like folks have made their way in. So we're gonna kick off our webinar here today for the Power at Sea Prize Develop phase. If we could move to the next slide, please. We have an agenda here. We're gonna cover the Water Power Technologies Office and Powering Blue Economy Initiative at kind of a high level. Then we'll walk through the develop phase overview, including timeline, goals, mission requirements, scoring criteria, and competitor support mechanisms. We'll have time for questions. Before we start, I just wanted to call out that this webinar is being recorded, and we would appreciate it if you would post questions in the Q&A. If you have any difficulties with that, you can use the chat, but we'll mostly be monitoring the Q&A. We also noticed today that for some folks, when they were joining Zoom, if the view is in what's called a standard, that you might not see the bottom of the screen. So if you're looking at the slides and you can see a little number 2 on the bottom left there, it means you're seeing all of our slide. If you're not seeing that little 2 down at the bottom, in the upper right of your screen, you will see the option to change your view. You can select from either full screen or side by side, and that will fix that so that you are seeing the full slides. All right, Katie, if you can take us to the next slide. Would also just like to say welcome to everyone. So we have 20 awardees who have won the Power at Sea concept stage that'll be competing in the develop phase. We have folks from all across the US, which is fantastic. And we have also seen that some folks had questions about reaching out to other competitors. That is absolutely fine. So if you see someone on this list and you want to reach out, you can use the HeroX platform for that. You can also contact our Power at Sea at inrel.gov email address, and we can connect you that way. All right, next slide. And I'm going to pass it off to Melissa with the Department of Energy Water Power Technologies Office.
Thank you, Amanda. I'm Melissa Ginnazio. I am the Marine Energy Power Project Manager over at WPTO. We're going to give just a brief overview of our office and our Powering the Blue Economy initiative. So here's the brief overview of the PBE portfolio. You've seen this slide before. Our PBE portfolio is split into 2 different sections, the Power at Sea and Resilient Coastal Communities. For the prize, we're most interested in applications out at sea, and here's some examples, but I do want to note that it's not an inclusive list. These are just some areas we're interested in, but the prize is open to anything, as you're aware, that's powering an application at sea. So here's some content to read through for folks. It's not a new slide, and again, this webinar will be recorded and posted. So next slide.
Hi all. So welcome to the develop phase of this prize. Going over the timeline of this prize, the develop phase opened last month, November 25th. Submissions are due June 2nd, and we'll dive into what those submissions look like during this webinar. And then in June 2025, we'll announce a winner. So the prize goals are the same as during the concept phase. So we're looking for bringing you all into the marine energy community, building that community, identifying new innovative and feasible marine energy concepts, and then continuing to introduce you all to WPTO, the Water Power Technology Office, and government funding mechanisms. Next slide. So you all have seen these blue economy applications. They're not any different than they were before. But as a reminder, in the concept phase, you all uh, looked at applications that could benefit from your marine energy concept. And moving forward in this new phase, the develop phase, you all will further dive into how your concept can support that application. Next slide. Looking at the challenge areas, also not anything new. We do want to call out the where you all fell and what different challenge areas you all looked at during the concept phase. So that's on the left-hand side, you can see that 4 teams focused on access, while 5 teams focused on deployment duration. You can see the rest. This is great. We expect you all to continue working in the same challenge area, but we do have room for if you decide to change. So please let us know as soon as possible if for some reason you need to change challenge areas. The Power at Sea email, you must email power@sea@nrel.gov as soon as possible, describing why you are proposing to change and justifying the decision. All of what you need to include, including a clear description and background and a justification, can all be found also in the rules document. But really, we don't encourage anyone changing challenge areas unless you see a reason to. Next slide. And I'll hand it over to Ben.
Great. Thanks, Bree. So Ben Maurer here, also from NREL. Once you have your application and your challenge area nailed down and you're confident you want to submit under that, which most of you already should be there, what you will be submitting is a quad chart, a technical narrative, and an early design document. And the next 3 slides are going to give some overview of what each of those comprises. And then after that, we'll talk a little bit about scoring criteria. So next slide, please, Katie. Great. So the quad chart, this is meant to be a summary of the concept that you're exploring. This will be shared with the public. So it counts for 10% of your score of the total 150 possible points. This is 15. And basic information for folks who aren't familiar, it's meant to just summarize the different components of your submission, your overall project. So these are things like the title, the challenge, or excuse me, the title, the names, the organization, the application, the intended deployment location, end use, power production, resource type, short description of the concept, images related to your concept, remembering that that is, again, made available to the public. So templates are available, that's that link below. And this is the only public facing part of your submission package. Next slide, please. The technical narrative is where you can start to get into what differentiates your proposal in business sensitive or confidential terms. So this is not shared with the public. This is 43% of your 150 possible points. We have templates available for this as well. And this describes the long-term future planning for your concept. So this is 10 pages for the technical narrative as opposed to the early design document, which we'll talk about next. The visualizations, graphics, etc., are going to be counted as a part of that 10-page limit. You'll see on the next slide that's not true for our early design documents. And the scoring criteria are presented there. So concept development viability, application evaluation, end user identification, and future plans on that long-term timescale. Next slide, please. The final third part of your submission package is the early design document. That's describing near-term planning, design considerations, and results that you have for modeling and testing thus far. Again, this is not public. This is the bulk of your submission in a single part, submission package in a single document. So that's 47%, 70 possible points. We have templates available for that as well. Your supporting visualizations, drawings, graphics don't count towards that 15-page limit for the early design document. Obviously be reasonable, but share with the judges your vision what you're accomplishing and what you accomplished so far, and looking at that near-term horizon. Scoring criteria for this, and we'll talk about this again in a couple slides, but technical capabilities and merit, quantitative analysis, system performance, and testing and validation planning. So next slide, please. Scoring criteria, this is scored on a 0 to 5 point scale. They're going to be scored by judges, reviewers for these. And we've provided a guide in the rules document. On the left-hand side are suggestions of content. They're not required statements or anything like that. They're just examples that we thought would be helpful for you as you prepare your materials specific to your project, your technology, your resource. On the right-hand side are the actual statements that our reviewers are going to be seeing as they score on that 0 to 5 point scale your submission. So you have insight into the process as somebody gets handed your submission package and has to review it. This is what they will actually be seeing. Next slide, please. And this is an overview of those criteria, which are spelled out in the rules document as you look. So there's the quad chart, 3 statements scored. There's the technical narrative, 13 statements scored on those criteria that I mentioned on each of those slides. And there's the early design document, which has 14 scored statements in total. So that's 10%, 43%, 47% for a total of 150 points. Next slide, please.
All right, thanks, Ben. I'll take it over from here. Hey, everyone. I'm Suma, and I'm one of the prize administrators for the Power at Sea prize here at NREL. I would now like to highlight some of the competitor support mechanisms that we have in place for all of you. So as part of the develop phase, we plan to host office hours, networking, and targeted trainings. So the office hours would be mainly to provide feedback to competitors on their submissions. And we'll have 2 sets of office hours. One would be a third-party expert, and one would be the Water Prize team, which includes almost all of us or most of us on this call today, but I'll speak to that more in the next slide. And when it comes to networking, we also plan to host virtual networking meetings where competitors can introduce themselves or also collaborate with other competitors. We also plan to have targeted training sessions and identify training session topics that would be most impactful for the winners. Next slide, please. In terms of the office hours, what we have planned is one office hour with a third-party expert, and the other set of office hours would be at the Power at Sea prize team here. So I would like to briefly introduce our third-party expert, Joachim Weber. Joachim is the chief engineer at the Water Power Group here at NREL and is an expert in design ideation and wave energy. He's here to provide expert level guidance and mentorship, especially as you look to identify your next steps in the develop phase. Also want to highlight here that he has not been involved in this prize previously in any capacity, that is as a reviewer. And also he will not be acting as a reviewer for the develop phase. So he would just be coming in from a third-party perspective. The second set of office hours that we have planned is which the Power at Sea prize team will be hosting. This has a lot of subject matter experts in the team that we have here today in the areas of design, build, fabrication, and testing, just to name a few. And also, if you want to navigate any questions related to end use, application, or if you want to meet us about price specific questions or price structure, we will make ourselves available. And finally, the third set of office hours here that you see is our Power Connector, that is Open Seas. So this registration will be posted via HeroX, and you can schedule multiple times. And I believe Jerry, who is our Power Connector from OpenSeas, is on the call today. I would love to invite him to maybe speak a little bit more about this in the next slide. But just before I wrap up, some things to keep in mind. All the booking links will be posted on HeroX. You can see that all the different office hours are made available for different periods of time. And also something to highlight is that the office hours with Yocum and the Power at Sea prize team would be capped at 4 hours per team. Next slide, please. Katie, I'm not sure if you can let Jerry come on, but it would be great if that is possible and Jerry can just introduce himself to our competitors here.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Awesome. Go
super,
ahead, Jerry.
super. Yeah, actually, there's more office hours and sessions than this. This is just the December, January ones. And once we get a feel for, what you all need, we'll adapt going out throughout the duration of it. There's two types of sessions going on here. One is what we call a dojo, which are kind of open sessions, which are open to everybody, and they'll kick off with a little bit around end use cases and commercialization considerations and that sort of thing. And then we've got the ability to schedule one-on-one sessions with the individual teams. And a lot of what we're hitting, obviously, the folks in NREL and the Water Power Technology Office will be hitting the technologies pretty hard. We're going to help you concentrate on the whole basically blue economy viability and end user type aspect, because what you find out a lot of times is people concentrate on the technologies, but what you really need is kind of that end user and those folks to pick up what you've done and take out and do goodness to the world. So what I'll also do is I've asked the folks to send me an email list of everybody. I'll follow up an email with some additional information for you all, and looking forward to working with you. It's exciting stuff.
Great. Awesome. Thanks so much, Jerry. Yeah, and I would just like to wrap it up by saying that more details will be coming on the background of the experts, the capabilities, and the timelines. Thank you so much. Over to you, Amanda.
All right, thank you. So again, just wanted to remind everybody to read those rules. We know it's a long document, but there's a lot of really important stuff in there, such as the scoring criteria statements that are going to really help you do well if you fully understand it. And if you have questions, reach out to us. You can use the forum on HeroX or send us emails and we can answer those questions. Next slide, please, Katie. All right, so on here we have that HeroX URL. That is what's going to take you to the page where you can find the forum, submit all your documents. You've done it once, so hopefully you remember how to do it. We have that American Made Challenges page. That's a summary of what's going on. It's also a great way to go and find other prizes that you might be interested in competing in. We have that Power at Sea email address here. All of this is hyperlinked, so when we post this document, you'll be able to click on all of those. And likewise, you'll be able to sign up for newsletters. So we have the Water Column, Hydro Headlines, and WaterWire. Those are all great resources for finding out about other funding opportunities and just general updates from the Water Power Technologies office. Next slide, please. All right, and just wanted to call out on HeroX, we do have an FAQ. During this webinar, we'll be getting some questions. If it's one that we get a lot, we'll post it here on the FAQ. We like to make sure that everyone has the same opportunities to hear the same answers. So this is a great place to go. Likewise, if we're getting similar emails, we'll post those here as well. Next slide, please, Katie. And that is all that we have for our planned slides today. We're now going to open things up for questions. So I can give everybody a minute to start typing. We did have one question come in so far that I was going to go ahead and answer. That was somebody was asking about their official award. So every team captain should have received an email that had all of the paperwork that you needed to start getting your cash award. There's one payment per team, so that's why that email goes to your team captain. that team captain also should have your reviewer comments. So if you're on a team and you haven't seen your reviewer feedback, reach out to your team captain. But you can also use that email on the screen, poweratc@nrel.gov, and we can share those reviewer comments with you. If for some reason you are the team captain and you haven't seen any emails, again, shoot us an email at that poweratc@nrel.gov, and we will try to resolve that for you.
So we'll be on for the next few minutes here, trying to give folks some time to formulate their questions and type them up and submit them to the Q&A there. If you have any, please don't be shy. Other folks on the call probably have the same. And while we are waiting, I'm going to double down on some of the slides there around resources. I've worked with both Jakob Weber and Jerry Cronin in the past, very fortunately, to have been able to do that. And yeah, I very strongly recommend that you take advantage of that resource. I think it's one of the really big perks of participating in these prizes. All right, we've got two questions.
All right. I'm happy to jump in on one of these questions here, Ben,
I
on
can
how
guess
many
which one you
how many
go for it.
final winners. Uh, if you open up that rules document, it says up to 20. So we never really say a set number on these sorts of things. It's always an up to, because it depends on the merit of what's submitted. Uh, up to 20.
And while you're on, Amanda, do you mind answering the following question, which is, I see that there is the possibility for up to 20 winners of the develop phase to win 1.5 million. Do awards get larger than 75K if all teams in develop are not awarded?
Oh, that's a great question. Again, we use that up to language, typically to give ourselves as much wiggle room as possible. That is the sort of question that we answer when we get there. So I would say as of right now, up to. So that's the top dollar amount as of right now.
Great. Thank you. And so the first question, I'm going to get to the first question and then the last one that's just posted. So we were looking at this as a dual use tech that can be commercially applicable as well as something that a potential DoD other government end user can benefit from. Would having feedback or support from their perspective help in our overall submission? So I'm assuming that end user feedback, you're asking if end user feedback, whether it's a commercial user or a DoD, federal, state government user, feedback could help in the overall submission. Does anyone from I have some ideas on where this might contribute, but does anyone from our team want to participate? Come off of mute and answer that question. Doesn't seem like it. Let's see here. Katie, if you're, oh, go ahead, Amanda.
I was like, I'm happy to give my general non-answer, which is go read the rules. But no, to be serious, when you go through the rules, you will see that there are scoring statements. Those are the statements we're evaluating you on. Whether those benefits are, it's more about how you talk it up, right? These are qualitative scoring statements. So the reviewers are going to be looking through your materials and making a determination on how well you're answering those statements. So, I mean, it could be beneficial as long as you talk it up really well and you really highlight it. Um, that's going to be my answer.
Yeah, to put that into more like engineering terms, in the systems engineering approach, as you're defining requirements and you're trying to figure out your constraints and your end user, how they're going to use it, what your market's going to be. I can see very clear places where that's going to be a part of your design and development process, and I'm sure you can too, including that in your write-up, in the technical narrative, and in the early design document with the appropriate amount of airtime is probably the right way to go with that. And you can look and see that some of these criteria have direct opportunities for you to put that kind of input, less testimonial and more just from an engineering perspective, is I think what our reviewers will likely be looking for, but that's conjecture on my part. The next question is this the first competition of this type by NREL? It's a little too vague to answer that question. I don't really know what you mean by this type. This is a DOE sponsored prize. Both PNNL and NREL are partnering to execute the prize on behalf of DOE. Of this type is a little unclear, but I think Amanda and some of the other folks on this call could give you hard numbers on how many prizes we've done to date, but it's not a small number.
Yeah, we've done 10 technology prizes just in that are WPTO funded. So once you look across all of DOE, that number goes up quite a bit. And once you start including some of the other things that fall under prizes like collegiate competitions, that number goes up even more. This is the first time the Power at Sea prize has been run, but it's very similar to the Ocean Observing Prize, which also was a Powering the Blue Economy prize.
Right.
So hopefully that
And
answered
the
it.
thought being to identify and incorporate great ideas, great teams, and try to get them into this pipeline to support taxpayers. Great. So will the develop prize be shared equally among the winning, excuse me, I bet everybody's willing, among the winning teams? Amanda, do you want to take that one again?
Yeah,
You've
this
already
one
kind of answered it.
yeah, kind of already answered. It's in our rules document that up to 20 teams can be awarded up to 75K. Uh, and there's lots of little legal language in the appendix that says we have flexibility. So at this time, that equal share cut across the up to 20 is 75.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for the questions so far, you guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. If anybody has any more, happy to answer them. We'll just remind everybody that this recording will be available. We'll post it on that HeroX website under resources. And again, welcome to email us questions, post them on the forum. But it seems like we're not getting too many more live questions, so may wrap it up here shortly.
Sounds good. That sounds like last question or last call for questions, folks. We've got a thank you. So thanks for the thank you. Thanks for attending and participating.
Not seeing any more. So I think we're going to go ahead and conclude for today and say thanks again for attending.